الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. Praise be to God. We bear witness that there is no God except the one God. We are a very fortunate generation, and this is understatement of the year. In Surah 32, God says that certain people have no idea how much joy and happiness await them. And we have no idea how fortunate we are, but 50 years from now, the future generations will realize how fortunate we are. We are the pioneers of something that is very special. About 50 years ago, for example, God's miracles through His messengers existed without any proof. And even now, our generation, excluding the pioneers that we have become, you go to them and say, Moses threw down the staff and it became a snake. And they say, sure. Oh yeah, sure. The unbelievers. Even the believers have doubts. You tell them Jesus revived the dead. And say, oh, maybe he just fainted or something, or he was just, he was sick or something and he came back to life. They do not believe those miracles. But now, God gives us the first tangible evidence that when Moses threw down the staff, it became a snake. Because what we have, and turns out that this has been always the case in the scriptures, in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the New Testament, everything that God sent down, everything that God created, you and me and the sun, the moon, the stars, they all have God's signature on them. The scriptures are mathematically composed, numerically structured, beyond human intelligence, so every statement in the Quran becomes proven with physical evidence. So when the Quran makes a statement, Moses threw down the staff and became a snake, this becomes a physical evidence proving it. Because it is mathematically composed by God Himself. It is authenticated by the mathematical composition that comes only from God, not from a human being. And God was an eyewitness there. God was an eyewitness who saw Moses throw down the staff and it became a snake, and He's telling us in a numerically structured statement. And the same is true with Jesus revived the dead. Every statement in the Quran is physically proven beyond doubt. So that's how, this is the fortune that we are not aware of. And this is how fortunate we are, is that we have now, you read the Quran and you have full confidence in everything it says, including many things that are unbelievable, like Moses throwing down the staff and having it turn into a snake. God says in the Quran in Surah 41 verse 53, I will increase my evidence. I will continuously increase my evidence until everyone believes that this is the truth. So when I'm going to talk to you today about the miracle of Quran, again, because there's some new evidence that just came out confirming this statement of God that He will increase His evidence. So initially, we said that the first verse of Quran consisted of 19 letters. And the number of surahs, 114, is a multiple of 19. And they said, well, this is coincidence. This came out first. And then we found out that in surah entitled Q, there are 57 Qs. The only other surah initialed with Q also had 57 Qs. 19 times 3, and 19 times 3, 19 letters in the first verse, 19 times 6, the Quran surahs. And people said, coincidence. Then we found out that if you add these two, 57, 57, you have 114. Q stands for Quran, 114 surahs, and they said, this is coincidence. They continued to disbelieve. And then we said that this statement here, which is 19 letters, every word of it is found in the Quran in multiples of 19. The first word is 19 times. The second word, 2,698 times. The third word, 57 times. The fourth word, 114 times. And they said, this is coincidence. So God kept increasing the evidence. And you know the rest. You know that the letter Nun in Surah Nun is 133, a multiple of 19. You know that we have, I'll just remind you of a few of those, so you will be the people who appreciate the Masjid Tusan miracle more than anybody else. There are 7 surahs initialed with Hamim, HM. 7 chapters constituting about 1/10 of the Quran. And you count these letters in the 7 chapters, and you have 2,147 of these letters in the 7 chapters. This is 19 times 113. If only one ha, one h, or one m was lost or added or substituted in the last 1400 years, this will increase by 1 or decrease by 1, and the whole thing disappears. The whole thing collapses. So you can see the mathematical composition that is beyond human intelligence and has to be from God. The thing that gives you confidence that when Moses threw down the staff it became a snake, it's like you're an eyewitness. You're just as good as an eyewitness, if not better. When Moses threw down the staff and became a snake, how many people saw that? Very few people who were inside the palace hall with Pharaoh. And how long did it last? A few minutes. And that was it. That was the end of it. The miracle happened. A few people saw it. It was over in a few minutes. But this miracle of Quran is continuous. Forever. It is perpetual. It is doing 2 things. It is a continuous miracle until the end of the world. And it confirms all those temporary miracles that were limited by time and space, like Jesus reviving the dead. How long did it take for Jesus to revive Lazarus? How many people saw Jesus revive Lazarus? But now we know, now we are witnessing that miracle now. Millions of people. By mathematically composed statements, authenticated by God Himself. We know that this is not man-made. God wrote that, and who was an eyewitness? So when this came out, they said, we don't believe it. I just received a review written by something Philip. Philip is the last name. It's not our Philip here. Some other Philip. And they finally admitted that there are 4 or 5 surahs that actually have multiples of 19. What they admitted was the Qs, but these are 57 in each of the Q initial surahs. So that's 2 surahs. The end, in Surah 68, they said, yes, this is correct. The Yasin, YS, initial surah. Surah 19, KHYAS, 5 initials. What was the other surah? I think this is it. And they said this is not enough to establish a pattern. It is pure coincidence. Okay, so they don't. But at least finally they admitted that there is something here. About the HM surahs, they said, why is he adding them together? And they raised all kinds of strange questions. So what you will see in the next issue, the Muslim Perspective, not this one, not October, but November, is that it is obvious that God is increasing His evidence, just as He said in chapter 41, and that those people will continue to say, no, we don't believe, in order to expose and confirm the hardcore unbelievers who will end up in the lowest pit of hell.